Well, my dream of Khamzat versus Adesanya, it was nothing more than a dream. I would have loved to see it, but I am not disappointed about this new fight announcement. Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev. This is super interesting to me because the thing about Usman is, for one, he's not risking a ton with this fight because no matter what happens, he's still the number one ranked welterweight. But number two, even though he's taking this fight on short notice, I'm not too worried about his cardio because most likely he has EPO just running through his veins constantly. So he shouldn't have a problem going all 5 rounds. The interesting thing about this matchup is, what's Usman's strategy going to be against Khamzat? What's Khamzat's strategy going to be? Usman has impeccable takedown defense. He's been taken down very few times. Is Khamzat just going to immediately shoot a takedown the second the fight starts? I don't know if that's a smart strategy. Khamzat loves sprinting at his opponents, but Usman's not really one to sprint at, especially not for 5 rounds, because we know he can go all day. You see, what Usman's strengths are is boxing and wrestling. He really struggled with Leon because of how he mixed in the kicks. That's something Usman doesn't deal with very well. And as we know, Khamzat's not much of a kicker. He can definitely kick, but it's not his strong suit. So this really is a clash of styles. Both guys are going to be able to use their best attributes against each other. The big question mark I'm looking forward to getting an answer about is how Usman's going to deal with Khamzat's size. As you know, I've said this multiple times, but Colby Covington, small welterweight. Gilbert Burns, small welterweight. Masvidal, small welterweight. The only full-sized welterweight Usman ever fought was Leon Edwards. And as we saw last time, at regular elevation, Leon was able to beat him. Though Ali did immediately come out and say Usman was really injured going into that fight and whatnot. Look, I couldn't trust Ali Abdelaziz as far as I could chuck the guy. But you never know. I think this is actually one of the rare instances where taking a fight on short notice may actually benefit Usman here. Because not having to go through a grueling training camp, he might be a lot fresher than he normally is. I don't think any of you are going to know this because it never ever gets talked about ever, but Usman actually has really bad knees. Did you guys know he has to walk up the stairs backwards? Did you guys know Usman has to walk on the grass next to the sidewalk because the joints in his knees are that bad? You'd think this would be a bigger news story, but no one talks about it. I think Joe Rogan should definitely bring it up more. Another question is Usman going to look to wrestle offensively in this match? He typically chooses not to against high-level wrestlers, and this is because he trusts in his boxing a lot. But also, in certain areas with his wrestling, he does lack, I guess you could say, agility. He can scramble for sure. We've all seen him wrestling with Michael Chandler, and they had all those crazy transitions. But typically when Usman chooses to wrestle, he likes picking up single legs, pushing guys against the fence to take them down. As far as shooting takedowns out in the open, he doesn't do that as frequently because to avoid the guy sprawling on you, you need to use a decent amount of power and speed, and it takes precise timing. Now, Khamzat, on the other hand, is the definition of an explosive wrestler. It's going to be very difficult to take him down out in the open. As we saw against Gilbert Burns, unless you get really deep on a shot, he's going to sprawl on you and he's immediately looking for that Darce. But even if he's able to push Khamzat up against the fence where he typically does his better work with the grappling, Khamzat is so physically strong, and now he's a lot bigger after moving up to 185. It's one thing to push Masvidal up against the fence and hold him there for all 5 rounds, but doing that exact same thing to Khamzat is a completely different story. Usman won't be a tiny middleweight. He's stated before in a few podcasts that through camp he gets down to 192 and then starts his water cut in the high 180s. Most likely he was around 200 pounds when Dana called him about taking this fight. So he's not going to be super undersized when it comes to this matchup. But like I said before, one of Usman's best attributes at welterweight was his size and his strength. But that's kind of mitigated here, and it's going to be very interesting to see what effect this is going to have in the wrestling exchanges between the two.